Good evening, everyone. I'm Austin Hall, the Director of Beach and Rec for the town. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We're excited to have you view this presentation. We're joined tonight by Chad Frost from Ken Frost, our consultant on the project. I think you're really going to enjoy what he has to show you. This is something we've been working on for a year now, and it's gone through the Beach and Rec Commission. It was just at the Board of Selectmen 2 weeks ago, and now here for some public input. This is just the beginning of the public input on this design that Chad and Beach and Rec and Board of Selectmen has come up with. So looking forward to your feedback. You'll see the sign that you may have seen on the way in. There's an email address that if you have questions outside of tonight, when you go home and think about it, you can email those questions to the email address listed, and then we'll compile answers and share them with everyone as well. So without further ado, I'll welcome Chad Frost and enjoy the presentation.
Is this one working? Yes?
Yep.
Perfect. So good evening. My name is Chad Frost. I'm a partner with Ken Frost Landscape Architecture out of Mystic. Very happy to be here working with you guys. We go after fun, exciting projects like this. And over the last year, we've come to find what Surf Club means to you now and hopefully into the future. Is this picking up evenly? Or I hear myself going in here. Okay. Let's do that. I don't like it. Perfect. Hopefully that's a little better. So we have a presentation. This is a conceptual plan. It is the very beginning. If you want to go to the next slide, Gene. Can you look?
Get it bigger?
Oh. Never mind. I can do it myself. All right, so this is the preliminary conceptual plan, presentation, and public input. And I want to stress all of those words. It's preliminary, it's conceptual. I'm here to go through it tonight and get input from you tonight so that we can continue to refine and change and progress, so that at the end of the day, we can develop a master plan that the majority of all of us are very happy with and looking forward to implement as we go forward in the future. Really quick, I wanted to run through some of the slides. First of all, show of hands of how many people were at one of the public input meetings.
How many envelopes? What?
The public input meetings. So we had 2 of those. Excellent. So quite a few new faces, which is good too. This was the history that was shown that Bob, the town engineer, had put together. I wanted to run through it very quickly, just because I think it's pretty impressive to remind us why we're here. That back in 1960, voters voted to purchase property. There was a bunch of articles written about it. Can we afford it? 1965, Garvin Point was acquired for $500,000. Garvin Point, what it was when it was purchased, versus what it looks like now. Pretty impressive, right? And look at the change in the beach, things that have changed over those 60 years. 1969, this is what the beach looked like in front of Surf Club building. I'll talk about this again a little bit later, but how much beach is there versus now? And you can see the Garvin Point George buildings out there on the point that existed at that point. So, as time progressed, you continued to add to it. Exchange Field, and in the 70s, the club purchased scoreboards. 71, some football games being played out there. I like this quite a bit. 1975, the nature trails, right? That was an ecology class at the high school put together and started routing where those trails would go. Still there now, for the most part. They need some love and some attention, but we'd like to continue bringing those forward. 1976, the restrooms went in. We heard quite a bit about those restrooms in our public input. And then some renovations in the late 70s. The seawall, part of the seawall going in the 80s. Square dancing in the early 80s. Food, fireworks, and music festivals, the Beach and Rec Shellfish Festivals through the late 90s and early 2000s. And then, of course, Strong Field and all the major renovations in 2009, substantially completed in 2017. So the biggest project lately. So that's kind of the fun historical stuff. Looking through aerial photographs, 1934, so just before the hurricane. Notice, so we've outlined in all of these where the surf club property is. You can see where the building, surf club building is, which was the clubhouse for the golf course back in the day, Garvin Point. What I do want to point out here is just how much sand is out here back in the 30s. Jump in a couple years, 1951. We've lost some sand already over at where the sailing club is. Interesting to see land changes up through here from fields and the houses. The golf course is getting greater developed. Jump into 1970. Interesting up here. This looked like it was a pasture at one point. It's now been starting to grow back in. The woods on the golf course side pretty much existed the whole time. There is a utility easement that runs through there. And that's kind of the separation between the two. But the athletic fields are actually over on this edge, current athletic fields, and they're down lower. This was a sloped hill across it. Jumping to 1986, a lot more golf course development. You can see the athletic fields starting, right? So there's the football field, there's the baseball field. Each club is now up and running as a club. There's the beginnings. This is the last of the field, and we have a baseball field up above in 86. And then by 95, more parking has now been added. All of the fields are a little bit more developed, added baseball as we've gone through, and now we jump to current times. Part of what we look at when we look for planning of this, especially along the coast, is the bigger picture of what's happening along the coastline. So we've panned out a little bit here. Skip too many. What happened? Will we go forward too many? Yes. So we've panned out a little bit. Obviously, you can see the site. What we look at are these points and where do we see historic erosion happening. And what we know with the coast of Connecticut, especially the northern coast on Long Island Sound, our southern coast, is the sand is moving from west to east, kind of on a daily basis. As the tides are flushing, the sand is generally progressing across the coast in that direction. What happens is as we get either man-made or natural features, jetties, rocks, things like that, they trap all the sand on the west side, and we get erosion that happens on the east side of those features. And that's what this graphic is really looking at, is historically over time, where have we been losing sand on a larger scale than just surf club? And I'll point out that this outer edge, that's the 1934 shoreline. And this inner is existing current day shoreline. So that's how much beach has been lost. both from erosion and a little bit from sea level rise at the same time. And it gets worse on these back edges where the erosion happens first. And that's kind of important as we talk in the future, especially where the sailing area is now. That's driven some of the erosion. If you were at the public input, this was one of those plans that we had out and available to look at. Talks about flood zones, flood elevations, has some of those historical photographs. This overlays on current day photographs, the 1934 coastline, the current coastline, and then the coastline with 20 inches of sea level rise. And CERCO, which is the agency out of Yukon Avery Point, that's telling everybody what we should project for sea level rise in Connecticut, is projecting 20 inches of sea level rise across all of Connecticut. That's our planning threshold that we need to be ready to accommodate. So when we map that on there, about half of the beach is lost just from that 20 inches of sea level rise. And then what I did want to point out here too, it's very interesting. Historically, when we look at this area of the sailing and beach club, the sand line used to be pretty consistent along the edge, leading up to the rocky point. Now that there's been some seawalls and other structures put in over there, they've stopped erosion on their side. On this side, look how far back that's eroded and all the sand that has been lost. And then what happens is as this area loses sand and it's no longer able to be carried in the water as it's traversing along the coast, it then goes to the very next spot and starts picking up sand again and carrying it along the coast. And so looking at this area and how much sand we've lost here is now why we're starting to lose sand in the beach proper, as that water that's going across the coast, where it historically would get trapped and drop the sand, now it's picking the sand up and carrying it. Does that make any sense? No? Yes? No? I'm seeing half and half. What?
Why the difference?
Why the difference? The difference is as the sand has historically, for eons, has been moving across. Once there's no more sand able to be carried, it needs to find it the next point, right? So like there's a carrying capacity to the water of how much sand can be held in solution as it's moving across the coast. Historically, when it gets trapped somewhere and that sand drops out of suspension, then that water has the ability to pick up sand adjacent and carry it away. And so historically, these rocks and things like that would be what would trap it. And then it would pick it up on the other side. We've lost all of the sand on this side to carry through. And so it's causing that erosion on this side to now speed up and be a little bit faster than it has been in the last, say, 100 years. I'll say this is high theory, right? We can't ask the sand particles, we're not tracing where they're going, but when you look at coastal ecologies, this is what's happening across all of Connecticut. And it looks very clear when you look at what's happening here from an aerial record of the beach. And again, just pointing out what it looked like in 1934 and what it looks like now. You can see how far that water has actually gone up into here, into the sailing area. That probably we don't notice on a daily basis, right? Because it just happens gradually over the last almost 100 years. But when you step back and pause, it's pretty relevant or apparent. The other thing I should say, so we have erosion that's causing us to lose sand. And then we have sea level rise that's also causing the water to be higher. Talking about that 20 inches of sea level rise. So this is our composite map. I'm going to go back just so you can see. Current sea level rise at a very small scale. When we map 20 inches of sea level rise here, what's great to see is that most of the park stays dry, even with 20 inches of sea level rise. You can see there's some marsh area in the back that does fill in with 20 inches of sea level rise, but the rest of the park stays mostly dry. We lose the beach, we lose about half of the sand area of the beach, but the park itself stays dry. We work in a lot of other areas in Connecticut. That's not the case, right? Where actual occupied land is being taken by that 20 inches So here, at least that's not the case. However, what does show up is when we start mapping that 20 inches of sea level rise on top of storms and storm events. So this is a 10-year storm from current sea level. And this is a 10-year storm with 20 inches of sea level rise. So it goes further in. This is 30-year storm, current, and a 30-year storm with 20 inches of sea level rise. So then this next plan, we map all of that together. What's important to note is that this blue area is the flood current with 10 inches, or current 10-year storm. The purple is a current 30-year storm. This hot pink color is 10-year storm with 20 inches of sea level rise, right? So in the future, with 20 inches of sea level rise, a smaller storm, a 10-year storm that happens all the time, will have a much greater impact on the site. It goes further into the site than a current 30-year storm will now. Yeah.
Yeah, referring to the 20-inch sea level rise, what time period are you saying?
Good question. So this question, I will repeat the question. The question was, I'm referring to a 20 sea level rise. What's the timeline for that 20-inch sea level rise? Can you possibly move the window where I am on the screen to see the legend? That,
Like on the other side.
there you go, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So
much.
the question about what's the timeline for the 20 inches of sea level rise? The projections are 20 inches by 2050, right? And 2050, 50. And that's, again, not research we're doing. It's by circa. That's what the state's been given as guidelines. When you look at all of the data, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So it might be 2050, it might be 2060, it could be a little longer, but that's the planning threshold to look for. And when you look at all the tidal gauges out in Long Island Sound, it charts almost like a straight graph to 2050.
One follow-up.
Yeah.
to that. Are we on 12 feet above sea level?
We're not 12 feet above sea level. The seawall right now is 9, elevation 9.
Okay, and you're talking inches, okay.
Correct. Yep.
Alright.
Yeah, so this is just to say, this whole graphic is meant to say that in the future, as sea level comes up, we know it's obviously going to take over a little bit more of the beach. We need to be planning for that. And the inundation from a storm will be worse with that when you're starting from that higher elevation. That's what this graphic is meant to show, that right now we don't get very many 30-year hurricanes, 30-year storms, but in the future we do get 10-year storms and they'll have a greater impact.
What's the average elevation of the whole blue area?
The average elevation of the whole blue area, that's in my memory.
Oh, flat.
I would say it's probably in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 would be my guess. Remember, it's been quite a while ago, but in feet, elevation 5 or 6. I can get you a real answer. That's just from memory, but I could, if you want, when we follow up, I'll get you a full answer. So that was some of our analysis that we did looking forward as to what do we need to be accommodating as we're going forward with the planning. As Austin mentioned, we've been doing this public input, basically since the end of last year. So in November and then again in January, we had 2 rounds. The first one was here. We had over 100 people in here for that event. We got about 60 responses, which was phenomenal. The following event, we had about 60 people, got about 30 or 40 responses, which is great. And then we put it up online and got another 176 responses. Every response was about 10 pages long of written questions. So we had thousands of pages and thousands of responses that we then collated together into this summary. So I'm going to try in about the next 5-10 minutes to summarize thousands of pages. But we want to go through that and make sure that everybody agrees that this is kind of what we have heard from the public as far as what you want within the park. Again, summary of in-person, summary of online. We separated those out so that we can tell if there's a difference of what we're hearing from people that come in person and might hear some of the information and talk about sea level and have some of those questions answered versus those that might be doing it at home and not having the answers or questions answered. So we separated those. And then we pulled them all together in an executive summary. All of this is available on the town's website. Right now, I think this document's about 400 pages with another almost 800 of backup. So if you want to go through it, it's all there. We did break it down through history, circulation, parking, athletics, general amenities. Those were all the topics if you were here that we got feedback on all of that. And I'm going to go through what we're calling our program elements. So when we go through all of that data, at the end of the day, what I really care about is what are the features that you want, right? If you're building a house, I need to know, is it 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 10 bedrooms? What's the program going to be? And so these are the program features that we got out of that public input session. For the beach, ADA access is important. More than what you have currently tried to do, really get access down to it. Preserve the beach at all costs. Avoid any loss of the current beach. They want sand restoration, the seawall, explore options for moving the seawall or keeping it, or evaluate what we can do with it. There was a lot of great feedback on what we call proactive coastal improvements. We asked a bunch of questions about, should we wait until there's a problem and then fix it, or should we act proactively? Very large response for acting proactively, and a very large response for what we call natural and sustainable coastal solutions. I've got some examples of those. But instead of a hard structure, instead of seawall, is there a nature-based way? Can we do dune establishments and things like that to protect the coastline as opposed to hard surfaces? There was a desire for wetland and dune restoration, optional shellfish areas, aquaculture, living shorelines, increased trees and green spaces, native vegetation, and one thing that we heard repeatedly on a variety of topics was do not overbuild. We like it very close to how it is. We just want it nicer and newer and updated, but we don't want it to be Disneyland. Sure.
That in the current budgeted plan, or I know you got hundreds of comments, what everybody wants, but what is the status of all of this?
So what I'm going to lead you through all the comments that we got back, and then we have developed those into plans, and I'm going to run you through those plans. That's why we're here. Excellent question. So for the surf club building itself, the overwhelming feedback was a brand new building. But the existing building, it was great. It was kind of, I'll say cute, but it doesn't meet the needs. It doesn't meet anything of what the public was looking for, and that it was either relocate or elevate in place. I should have also mentioned in that flood discussion, the current building is within the wave action area, within the V zone, and it's below the flood elevation. So it's a couple feet too low and it's too close to the water currently to where it will get impacted by wave action and large storm. So that's part of the elevate and move strategy. One big thing, maintain the water access and all the views. That people love the building and the view from the building. Make it accessible. It obviously wasn't built originally to be accessible, but it needs to be fully accessible now. Some indoor amenities that are highly needed: bathrooms, showers, changing rooms, bigger, better kitchen, AC, Wi-Fi, expanded office space, a larger space for events. We know the existing space only holds about 75, which limits most from being able to really rent it. It needs to be larger. There needs to be a community room for either community programs, teen space, programming, summer camp, things like that to run programs. Restaurant food service options, better lighting and overall upgrades. Outdoors around it, larger deck, larger boardwalk, picnic tables, shade, ADA access again, outdoor showers, better trash and waste management, keep the snack bar, and then better service. And then at the bottom two, preserve the historic charm and the beachy casual vibe. Again, the common theme that we heard. And then there was a desire to explore both 1-story and 2-story structures to see what the impact would be. Parking and circulation, we heard very strongly the desire to have a second means of egress, right? That in high events, it takes hours to get out of there. And so being able to have a second road, driveway access to get out is important. probably not to have be a second entrance, right? We don't have to staff multiple entrances. We still want one main entrance, but for emergency and or large event exits, we need a second exit. Walking trails, renovate the existing walking trails. There was the strong consensus to avoid building new trails, but there's enough trails, they just need to be renovated. From traffic calming was a big one, slow the cars down. We heard a lot of people feel everybody drives too quickly through the roads there. Reorganize the existing parking lot, create better circulation, repave, restripe signs, basically new parking areas. Add accessible parking spaces throughout the site where we need them. Add lighting and provide parking and spaceability so where people can get there. Like if you're headed to the park, well, you know if there's parking available. And so that's not something we can show on the plan, it's something we're keeping in mind, that there could be technologies so that you know if parking's available or not before you leave the house. Walking routes, pedestrian routes next to the site, huge. If we can get people to walk and or bike there, we don't need parking spaces. And so making sure that we have ADA accessible routes, sidewalk connection to Route 1, more crosswalks, pedestrian safety amenities. So that's really a pedestrian friendly park that you can drive through as opposed to a parking lot that you don't feel safe walking through. Bike lanes connection to Route 1. We talked about some traffic management things like shuttles and drop off for large events, and then also parent shuttle drop offs, which often comes an Uber type drop off, where we can come in and drop off and quickly get back out without having to go too far into the site. And then areas of celebration. So there's so many really cool spots within the park, but we don't overly celebrate them. They're just kind of there and you have to find them. Bathrooms. I appreciate you all chuckled when I showed the pictures before because we got a lot of it that they just need all new bathrooms. Right? The bathrooms have been built probably in the 70s, have been kept going, but there needs to be full renovation replacement bathrooms. There's the desire to be able to add them at the athletic fields. And so we're showing for that. Incorporate some showers and changing rooms, and they all have to make sense. Athletics, keep the number of fields that we have. We can't afford to lose any, but we also don't probably need to make any new fields at this site. Strong field, one of the most amazing fields from a location perspective in probably all of Connecticut. So keep it as the key attraction, celebrate it and work with it. Assess the long-term viability of the synthetic turf. At the very beginning, we were nervous when we put synthetic turf kind of in a close to the coastal environment. It can be difficult to coexist sometimes. We were happy to see in all those flood studies that the field stayed elevated and out of all of those mostly significant storms. If we get the 100-year storm, we know it's inundated, but every storm before that or under that should be fine. And then some minor things like adding some better exit routes and things like that from the bleachers. Basketball courts, high priority, renovate, relocate, be desirable to have them side by side with lighting and seating. The other fields Lowry and Exchange, fix some of the flooding, do some of the infrastructure improvements, just kind of grass areas that are there. They need to have all the other field amenities to go along with them, including accessibility and parking. And then we did hear about some additional activities like pickleball, tennis, wall ball. In the end, through discussions with the committee, those were like nice to have, but also there might be better places in town at other racket facilities where they might be better suited versus here if we don't have space. Some other things that we got feedback on: flexible outdoor spaces. We got quite a bit of strong support for a town green or some sort of focused area that could be an area of celebration during the fireworks, during fundraisers, picnics, community pride areas, open to the public. Year-round community spaces designated for camp, amphitheater, stage, those sorts of assets were strong. A pavilion with tables and seating. Out at Garvin Point, the walkway should be extended to connect to it. It's beautiful what has been built, but the walkway, you have to walk through the lawn to get to it. So connecting to it.
You'd say camp area, doesn't like pitch tent camping, you mean like day camp?
Good, clear. Yes. When we say camping, it's not, coming overnight camping. It's the day camp and the summer camp, kids camp, to be able to have space to use for camp activities. Good clarification. More picnic tables that are more accessible and more shading. At the staining area, some better storage, just update the layout so that it can be more usable. The one big one, the maintenance shed in the dumpster area needs to go. Right, this is in an area very close to the wetlands and a coastal environment, probably not the place to be doing work on all the equipment, not the place to store chemicals and things like that, so there is that greater plan that it can be relocated somewhere else in town. There will still be some maintenance materials and equipment that need to stay, but just for the park, right? Just the things that need to be maintained for this area, not the maintenance for the rest of town rec facilities. And then the skate park, we received the feedback that it probably should go in most options, that it doesn't get well used, and that if it's going to stay, there needs to be significant investment in it to make it worthy for people to want to come and use it. All right, amenities for all. I'll try to go through these quickly. Like I said, we got pickleball, splash pad, better playgrounds, fitness trail, wall ball, covered seating areas. Those were pretty high on the list. Some of the minor ones were the trails, the boardwalk, the circus. Seasonal storage. We'd asked a bunch of questions about storage. We thought people would love the ability to be able to have like a locker for the season. Didn't pan out. I was kind of shocked by that. And even like rentals, like, do you want to have a kayak that you could rent? So instead of having to bring your own, but it didn't receive that much support from all the feedback we got. But outdoor games, cornhole, shuffleboard, some of those smaller things would be great to add. Outdoor program spaces for yoga, movie night. And then water fountains were highly suggested as well. Safety access, better security, enforcement rules, cameras, all those things we've been talking about from the beginning. They just need to be added in, kind of from an operations perspective. We heard about the communications and the fact that there's like no self-service down there, and so that needs to be factored in as well. Hard to show on a plan, but will be kept in mind as we go forward. And then again, preserve the character of the circle, right? At all costs, you guys love what you have. It's the gem of the town, and we don't want to hurt it. So with that, we're getting real close. So the big takeaways that we got, big kind of like assumptions that we start with from a planning perspective, is that there's a new surf club building and a new location. We have a bunch of improved site amenities. The old seawall probably goes away or gets moved in combination with coastal rehabilitation. And then, as I just mentioned, the facilities building gets relocated so that space is freed up for other uses. Doing some other assessment just so we can talk about some ideas for the coastal protection. If we're not talking seawalls, the options that we have kind of available to us are beach nourishment, which is basically putting a bunch of sand out on the beach. So those pictures off to the right, different ways of doing beach nourishment, right? You can truck it out there and bulldoze it around. The one in the middle is where you literally are dredging and piping it back onto the beach and then spreading it out. These are all approved methods of doing beach nourishment or just adding to the beach. Dune restoration is another one that we've talked about, that being able to provide dunes so that when storms happen and erosion happens, there's sand already there in the form of a dune that can move in and fill in the beach. And then the sand, sometimes when it's wind swept off the beach, it collects in the dune instead of blowing into the parking lot or blowing away. So it can then come back into the beach at a later storm. We then also talk about living breakwaters and reef balls. Anybody familiar with that? Couple, good. Couple more. So this is a way of being able to remove some of the wave energy before it reaches the beach. So out in the water, below the water, we submerge them down, and you can put in, these are a bunch of different pictures of what they can look like. These were kind of some early ones. It's basically just a concrete mold, can be a full ball, can be kind of this upside down pot with holes in it. You can put stuff into the concrete mix so that oysters like to grow on it and turns into a living reef that's good for the ecosystem, as well as basically that structure that you put in at the bottom of the ocean. As the wave comes over, it basically trips the ocean, trips that wave, makes it crash early, takes the energy out of the wave, so that when it gets up to the shore, doesn't have as much erosive force when it gets there. And those are some other pictures of some divers placing material to kind of seed them when they're out in the water column. And additionally, they're now new companies kind of making fun shapes and a little more creative things than just upside down pots with holes in them. But that's the idea, that a living breakwater might be a great example to be able to break that energy as it's coming ashore. The other is what's called engineered breakwaters. That's like a rock stone sill. Think of like a rock jetty, a pile of rocks. It's parallel to the beach. So it's running, maybe it might be 50 feet offshore and it's a rock pile. We felt that probably wasn't very desirable for most people that want to go to use the beach. Here's a couple of sections of what those things can look like. The top one, you can leave me on it, that's fine, because that's just the existing condition. Showing the current beach shape. I'll point out then that's the next one, beach nourishment. That's the existing seawall. That lower blue is the existing profile. The beach nourishment would be all of that sand we put in place out there. And we have some sea level rise indications as to where things are going. But the big takeaway here is that your beach currently ends about here. And we've now extended out into the ocean almost twice as far as it currently is with sand. And then fill it up quite a bit. So it's basically almost even to or equal to the current seawall. So all of that sand is there to do, I'll say, natural things over the course of time. That's just simple beach nourishment. We can then do dune restoration with beach nourishment and the living breakwater. So this puts a dune on the backside of where the wall had been. So that we have that in the future and it has something out there to break that wave energy. And then this is just the one example with that stone sill out there. Again, we felt, oh, look, we pretty much hate it. The whole reason you go to the beach to have a stone wall in front of you would not go over well. So we basically focused in our plans that we're carrying the spatial requirements for something like that. Beach nourishment with some reef walls out in there and the ability for a dune to be on the uphill side. Surf club building itself, there was detailed assessments done by DRA several years ago. They reinforced what the public felt about the building. It needs a whole lot of work. There's a whole lot of money to be spent. It's in a floodplain. Probably not wise to keep spending money to build a building that's difficult to maintain, not meeting the public's functions, and it would have to be elevated or moved. So with that, we then took the spatial requirements for what should a new building, how big should a new building be? So on the very left is the existing building footprint, about 5,500 square feet of usable area, broken up into all those different categories. We then did a program for a 1-story and a 2-story building. So if you add a 1-story building, we do add quite a bit of entry and circulation space, just because as the building gets bigger, you have hallways, you have all that extra interior space. The banquet space went from 1,200 to 2,800. There was no program space existing. We now have 1,500 square feet of program space. Staff space went up by a couple hundred feet in order to give some offices for privacy conversations that need to be able to happen between staff. Food service went up slightly, a couple hundred feet. Restrooms came close to doubling, just because what you have is not sufficient. And then we have quite a bit more. And we've added about 500 square feet of storage in the 1-story footprint. When we go to a 2-story footprint, it's about 1,300 square feet of total floor area. It's about 8,000 square foot of footprint, right? So it's smaller than the 1-story building, but it's not half, because you don't get to put 2 equal stories, one on top of the other. You do have a lot more room for entry and circulation, because you now need elevators and stairways and things like that. You go to the 2nd floor. We still get 2,800 a banquet, 1,500 a program, same amount of staff space and food space. There's more restroom space because we now have 2 floors and we need restrooms up and down. Yep.
When you say restrooms, does that include changing rooms?
Yes. Yep.
So you can have separate restrooms, just walk in and use it, but changing rooms when you've got little kids, you want to
Yes.
stand on something.
Yep.
And is that enough?
Is that enough? It's probably never enough, but it's what we would recommend at this stage, right? And what I want to stress is this is a footprint. This is the existing footprint. These are completely generic, made up footprints. The whole reason we go through this exercise is to figure out how much land do we need to have, what's the size of the block that we're going to put on the plan so that we know what the right size is to move it around. So that's why we do this. The shape will be most likely completely different and flipped around, but we want to know how much space we need to do. So these numbers will change as you go through there, but they're right now a very good benchmark to use as we go through the planning process. So with all that, we took all of that input and we came up with 3 different concepts that we ran through the Beach and Rec Committee a couple months ago, and then we presented to the selectmen a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to go into these details because what we did is got feedback from them on these 3, and then we consolidated it down into 1 as we want to go through. But I'll just highlight some of the differences, right? You can tell that the parking lot here is different than the parking lot there, which is different than the parking lot there. Here, the building is kind of central, moved and moved back. Here, the building is kind of close to where it is currently, but moved back. Here, the building, the surf club building is all the way out at Garden Point and turned horizontal. We played with where different things happen, where the playgrounds are, where the roads circulate through, some of the different parking configurations up at Exchange Fields. A bunch of minor things through there. What I'll say is at the end, pretty much everybody universally did not like this one, right? The building out at the point, not close to there, to the where it kind of is now. A bunch of the other features we had actually trying to use as just an emergency exit, the golf cart path, like doing a work with them. That did not go over well. So we've now combined those 3. And so the one concept plan that we want to review tonight, and because none of you can see that probably, I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I'm going to work my way through the plan. Then we'll take some questions and work through it a little bit. I have some paper ones too that at the end we'll set out on the table so you can get a closer look. So we'll start here as we're driving in. This is the Surf Club Road as we come in. First thing I want to know is we're showing that bike path continuing all the way out. It needs to connect. It can't just stop at the property line. It needs to go all the way out, connect to Route 1. We come in, we have a new entrance, new ticketing area or check-in area, and a full loop drop-off so that parents can drop off and pick up right there without having to go in. The Uber can do the drop-off, pick up right there. You can loop right around and have an area to be able to drop off out of the way and be right back out again. We've taken a boardwalk connection so that if you're walking there, you can boardwalk and come right down to the beach right away. We've moved the basketball courts together. In one of those earlier concepts, we had them in a couple of different places throughout. We've shifted them over here, oriented them a little bit. So some of that activity, the volleyball courts are right there as well. That activity is kind of happening in this zone. We have some walkways and tables and chairs and walls and all that happen around it with some shade structures in the middle. So it's a very welcoming, active place. As we come through, the big change here is we've carved in close to the ball field to get some parking spaces. Right now, this whole zone is that parking lot currently. So we've taken the parking, pulled it away from the beach, put the parking up by the road and then actually on the other side of the road, because we know that these fields don't have any parking associated with them. And that's like the little kids are out in those fields. And we see too many kids running from this lot across the field without mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. Right, and that we want the parking to be on this side of the road. Yep.
So that necessitates removing the existing black fence around this?
Correct, yes. Yep, the question was, are we removing the black fence? We move it, we don't remove it, but we move it around. We change where that paid experience is to control the field.
So if you lose any parking spaces with that,
No. We gain minutes. Overall, with this plan, we gained about 80 parking spaces in total through the whole plan. But we move it around a little bit on site. So we have some parking here. I'll also note that we have pull-in parking facing the beach along the drive as you come in. This is meant to slow traffic down. Right, as you come in, we talk about traffic calming. This is a great way to do it. That if you're driving through here and you think somebody might be backing out or pulling in, you're going to drive more cautiously than if there was no parking there at all. So we've added that pull-in parking so that the people that are used to parking there and kind of walking right to the beach, there's still some of that parking available. And now there's sidewalks that go from the parking lot down to the beach. We've moved the proposed beach and rec facility further to the west and back and turned it to face the west a little bit. This is oriented, I'm gonna forget the name, there's a lighthouse 4 miles off the coast. It's oriented looking at that lighthouse. Yes. So that's the orientation for where that building is located and angled. So Surf Club building is kind of now central. We have a loop drop off that you can come through and drive right on through, or you can really drive up through. That existing kind of lollipop that's there now, very difficult to use. This would be much more comfortable, have a full drop off lane, a bypass lane, a welcoming area at the front of the building. And then a very large deck off the back. Was showing the footprint here for a 2-story building. That was what most people felt they liked as we went through it, that it was a smaller footprint, but the ability to have maybe the event space upstairs. So that can be happening kind of separate. The public can still walk down the deck down below and be separated and not feel like you have the public in the event space. We have some shade areas out to the side. So if the snack shack is right there, there's now a shade area. It could be the sailcloth type shades and seating, food service right there. We have this winding, I'm going to call it a boardwalk. Doesn't have to be wood, but some sort of specialty pavement winding pathway that connects the whole beach. So that you can go from one end to the other end. It connects over to the existing Garvin Point part there. It connects the building, it connects the shade structures, the basketball and volleyball area. It winds slightly up and down. So back here, it's high, it's up at about, like say, elevation 12. Down here where we come down over the dune and down onto the beach, it's now accessible onto the beach.
So where's the seawall on that plan?
The seawall is gone on this plan. So the seawall has been replaced with an increased amount of beach and a new dune that would be in the place of where the seawall had been. So this is that living shoreline concept. So a good question. So this light line that's hard to see out there, that's where the reef balls would be out in the water. The red line that you see right there is the 1934 coastline. The black line is where we would propose to fill out into the water to do the beach nourishment. So you gain about double the beach. That blue line is your existing water line currently. So we double the amount of beach and we put a berm, a dune behind it. And that dune acts as our protection and we elevate everything behind it as opposed to the sea. The seawall is good at protecting things behind the seawall. Very bad for protecting the beach itself. Causes a lot of erosion at the beach. And so because we got such strong support that the beach was, we couldn't lose it. This is the best way to protect it.
But the seawall stops the wave action. The wave now is gonna go all the way up on the lawns.
No, we'll have, you will be high enough to be above that flood elevation. But that's, again, what I would say, this is concept. We want the feedback. And to see if people like it or don't like it. And that's part of what we'll get afterwards. Yep. It appears that we're losing a lot of picnic tables. We think we're actually adding a lot of picnic tables and picnic areas, but we can look more detailed at where those all are to make sure that we're not losing them. We want to have more and we want to have them spread out throughout the park.
So if you're gonna have an event there and you're gonna need to have deliveries.
Yep.
And also you're gonna have things that need to go to the snack bar and if you have trash, where does that go?
Well-
So it's not right smack in the middle of where everybody's trying to come in and drop off.
So the way we normally like to recommend is those are controlled activities that happen during off hours, right? So the trash is picked up in the morning. It would happen, there would obviously be some trash here, but we'd have it all pulled to dumpsters in the back.
Is that those three little things, are those trash?
Oh, no, those are like the size of this room. These little things here,
Oh,
those are like pavilion things, those are shade structures.
So that's a snack bar. So where would a truck, say if someone's gonna have a wedding?
So if you're having a wedding, the chairs or the caterer, they're gonna pull in and they're gonna use this as drop off room zone during that. So I'll just keep going so I can try to get through this and then we'll try to answer questions as we go. We have a large kind of arrival entry area. We're showing some wave beaches and things like, or wave benches and things like that. We do have some picnic tables, chairs throughout this new lawn area that currently doesn't exist. Larger deck all the way around, connects down to the boardwalk. We have connections over the dunes down to the beach. This is a new potential playscape. because the old one gets relocated to the side. It's larger than what's currently there with the play surface. We have a new bathroom building adjacent to that, so it's directly adjacent to the play suite. We are showing the splash pad that was requested potentially in this location. This is a larger reoriented parking lot, right? So it's angled with, and I'll get to that in a second. The bocce courts have been relocated and aligned to kind of go with the parking and everything else, so you can get close to them easier. This is a large pavilion space out at Garvin Point. So this is kind of the low area. Right now it's lower here and higher out here. So that works great for kind of concerts and things like that. That the natural amphitheater, if you will, a little bit. We are showing picnic tables. We're showing the grills along the edges. We're showing movable seating, whether that's Adirondack chairs or wheel benches. Details to be determined. Pathways that connect all of it into the existing pathways that come out the back, connect through. And right now there is a drive that kind of loops all the way around. We're cutting that off so that this is just the service loop that comes to that pavilion. It could be more of the utility area. It's still a driveway to serve to the sailing area. But all of the driveway, all of the parking circulation stays within the parking lots. And I want to note that we have significant pedestrian connections through the parking lot. So we have the ability, if you park in a lot, to get to an aisle and have a direct access through a very nice pedestrian connection to the building or get to the fields. I'll take you first, yeah.
Maybe you've already addressed this, but it's something that really concerns me. You've put a lot of work, your firm, into the concept, and it's very interesting, and it's, you know, viable, I imagine. However, what I'd like to know is, because I'm a very concrete thinker, what communities has your firm taken on and redeveloped, given ideas for the beach erosion, number one, and number two, redone the community building and added all these things, and how's it working? We are very familiar with Rye, New York, with Fairfield County. Fairfield has put in a new pavilion, if you call it, whatever. So I'd like to know where we can go and actually see this work that your firm has done.
Well, I would say there's never a place that we've done this like this, right? This is gonna be,
I don't hear you.
this is a one of one, is what I would say. Right now, we have done work. We have like a living shoreline project for Stonington with Boathouse Park, big boathouse going in on the Mystic River.
So what
Right
beaches
now.
have you planned that?
We've worked, well, the living shoreline is brand new, right? So there aren't many going in right now. What we would do is we, as my own firm, we're just one of the trades that would be involved, right? So this is the concept, the master plan. If this is what the public wants to do, we then fill in with all the other experts. As far as coastal experts go, I'm not going to be the coastal expert that designs your living shoreline. There will be a coastal engineer that does that. That is that person. Just like the electrical engineer and the structural engineer and the geotech engineer, we hire all those trades to come in and do what those parts of the project need. Right. So this is the first step to say, is this something that you want? And if it is, then great, we go forward with those things. If it's not what you want, then we need to step back and reassess and make sure that we're showing the right things. That's the point of this, before we get into the detail.
Can we look at the second version?
Yeah, trying to get there.
I'd just like to hear a little bit what the dunes are looking like. A dune creates a visual barrier. Where is that near this walkway? How do we get over it?
Perfect. All good questions. So the way we've shown the dune so far is about 3 feet high from the land side of the dune. So it's not a 15-foot, it's not really big. It's not like you'd see down in South Carolina or something. So that you can see over it visually, because we know the public wants to be able to see over it, and that we could cross over it pretty easily as well and have breaks to go through. So the dune, and it meanders, there's like, that's this shaded area here would be where the dune would be, and in this location.
And so there's no dune on the easterly loop.
Right here, there isn't, because there isn't currently, there's dunes out here that we maintain and enhance. But here, there's the long run up of sand that we would maintain for the beach volleyball. Yeah.
So just two considerations. I'm a voter. Have you considered the route of the freighter in a 21-foot sailboat and how that would make its way into the park and to the boat beach? And then the second is, for years, there's a rock off boat beach. We used to go out to the market, and I wonder what these things in the water, you're gonna have to kick your rudders up and you lose control of the boat at that point. So it would be either they need to be marked or understand that we got a lot of boat traffic.
So two good questions. The question for getting a trailer into the boat area and then making sure that the reef balls or something we're not putting in there aren't interfering. So the access to get, and you'll see it in a little bit, but you can come through a loop up here, come through this driveway is exactly the same driveway you currently drive on now. You're driving it. No.
Oh.
So if you come through here currently to drop off your boat, it'll be just the same or easier because the roads getting there will be wider. We're not showing any of this here because we just, at the moment, we said there's not major changes. It's going to stay effectively as it is, or you're just moving around where somebody stores their boat. We're down here, we're increasing we're doing beach nourishment. So we're pushing the beach further out. We're allowing the beach dunes to either side that are currently there to expand out, but we're leaving the access through. And we're not doing, or not recommending, I should say, any of the reef balls on this side of the
Those three dots, right?
Those three dots are just, that's the red line
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's showing up. That's the historic coastline right there. So we don't have anything blocking your view. Now, over here, I agree with you. We'll need some buoys or something to mark where those reef balls are, if they're gonna be within the water column of some standing by.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have a big question.
okay, I'll try to remember.
First is, what is the rationale for needing more parking space? I'm looking at this and I see the first, the biggest element on here. I understand you might need some more. What's the rationale for 80? Or that seems like a lot.
So,
So that's question one.
yep.
Well, so question two is, part of the charm of this existing building is that it's kind of a small, cozier event space, and it's very expensive for people to rent. With this bigger, I guess, elaborate space, I think we're gonna have to charge more. So like the cost, revenue, benefit element, I think would need to be looked at for that. And third, actually. The answer goes.
All right, two. So I'll start with two. Why is the parking going up by a little bit? We heard that the parking meets the need most of the time, but we know it doesn't meet the need during major events. We also expect that as we have a refreshed park, people want to come at a higher frequency. We add down here, although this lot looks, it's nicer, it's more organized than what you currently have. We gain about 30-ish spaces down here. Most of the parking that we gain is what you'll see in a minute up at the athletic fields, up by exchange fields. Because we're putting more parking up there that currently doesn't exist. So that's where most of the parking comes. As far as rental costs and cost on return of the building itself, I'm going to assume it's going to cost a little bit more and it's going to be a bigger building. This is what the public asked of us when we went through the input, was that there needs to be a bigger space that the public didn't have, a big enough space to rent. If the feedback after all of this is that's not true, then we can go back to a smaller building. The building still is in a flood prone area that still needs major rehab. Those things don't change. But the other thing that we haven't done too, that I'm just gonna put out right now, we don't have a cost estimate on this. The first thing we always do is develop the plans and make sure that we're headed in the right direction, refine those plans, and then as they get refined, we start putting cost estimates on. So when we start adding this up, most likely things will get phased, things could be removed, things will change, maybe get bigger, maybe get smaller. As far as the budgeting phasing goes as well.
A fair question.
Oh,
So, why so much office space? Who is going to be in these offices?
so I would say there's not a lot of office space. Currently, there's basically the same amount of office space that's there now, but they're all in one common space. And there's times when you might need to be having a phone call with somebody about special services, or donation needs and things like that, and there needs to be some privacy between staff to have those conversations. And so that if somebody walks into the desk to get their pass, they're not hearing about somebody with financial hardship on a phone 5 feet away. So that's where the additional space comes from. It's not that they're, increasing by a lot of area. And we've found that having staff there is a very effective way, since it's the biggest asset from a rec perspective, that this is the right location for that staff to be.
So all right.
The beach and recs, I don't want to, the office space expands to meet what's currently there, the staff that are currently there, with some private space to be able to have those conversations. Is how I'll best answer that. What I'd also say is, I'm not an architect, a building architect, I'm a landscape architect. So we're doing a size massing plan to be able to say, this is the size of building we want to plan for. It will go through the same iteration if the public decides you want to build a new building, to rehash exactly what the footprint is, exactly what all the uses are, and exactly what the size is. Yeah,
This boardwalk here, when you come in at the,
this one,
yes,
that,
is that like where the first beach is now?
yes.
And
Basically very similar to what you have now, just it's realigned.
will there be any parking spaces there?
The parking spaces are right here.
Oh, so it's,
So you'd be able to park here and then walk down this way. This is for pedestrians,
sorry, I
pedestrians.
didn't hear you, what?
This would be for pedestrians as you're coming in, as a way to be able to
Yeah,
go right,
okay, so you can just park up where that curve is and then,
drop off.
oh, you only can drop off?
Yep,
You can't park there?
nope.
So you have to park way over there?
This is about where the current parking is now, yes. So I want to keep going, so we can keep moving, and then we'll put all the plans out. You can look at them in more detail and put more, I think one more, yeah.
I have a couple of questions. Like where the hockey courts are now, where's like access from the party garden point, like you show like where the beach access points are, that they're not going through dunes.
The beach access points on this plan.
Yeah,
Yep, so we would have, this is the stairs that were just built.
yeah.
This would be a new ADA ramp to get,
It's just like, so. Behind that boardwalk is dunes, right? So
here.
you're only gonna access it from where they intersect.
You're gonna access point, 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 and all along here.
Okay. And then coming through like from the parking lot to Garden Point, is it walking through the bocce courts?
There's a big trail that goes through here. It's not through the bocce course. There's a sidewalk that goes through there. So the scale here is probably a little bit difficult to read. Like, this is an 8-foot sidewalk that you can probably barely see from that.
And then the other question I got was like, with the building, you know, a lot of that is in day-to-day public use space. Kind of a pavilion type building, you know, with the snack bar be. Was that discussed at all? And like an event space or offices pushed back into where that amphitheater is? Into that?
So what we heard from the public was that they wanted a new building that was bigger to accommodate bigger events, and they wanted it close to the beach with the view, and that the view was what was important to them. If you feel that that's different, then if your opinion doesn't align with that, then we want you to write that down on the sticky note and make sure we.
Can I hop in for a second, but I think I know what he's asking, he's talking about, do we need to have a beach and rec office space and buying real estate?
Not necessarily, just overall, if you're gonna have. The day-to-day of that footprint of the building, the public is gonna use it. Where if it was an open pavilion, the public would be able to. Have different table space, and you could have essentially the amphitheater you can use as. You know, the pavilion of the amphitheater evening, so you'd have beach concerts instead of facing away from the water.
Right, so if I can, because you and I talked about this at the end of the selectmen meeting, so to try to recap. The suggestion is that because this building isn't open to the public all day long, because it might have events going on it, that could now be on the second floor, and we could have public program space on the first floor. Should this building be relocated somewhere else, or should it be something else? It can absolutely be, is my answer. right? What we have been told so far by the public is that they wanted a larger building with these activities in. If we get the feedback.
So they want more office space?
I think a point about the public piece, please. I came here tonight to talk to two things, and one was about public input. The other is operational stuff, logistic stuff. Number one, you're doing a great job.
Yes.
You are doing an excellent job. Public input, your survey data that you shared, that's online, 265 respondents. That's 1.5% of our voter registration. That's about 4.5% of our households here. You're being put at and the information that you've gotten, I'm not even saying it's wrong. You put the 265 respondents, I'm not even gonna say it's wrong or right. However, that is a very, very poor representation of our community. You need to make, if we're gonna make strong statements about what the public wants, drive that number up. I've lived here my entire life, moved here in 1969 with my family when I was 2.5. I've raised my family here because I wanted to. I've been a head lifeguard here. I've been on the Beach and Rec Commission. I've been a director of athletics, first full-time director of athletics, worked with the Beach and Rec to do what the things that I've done there, understand the operation of it as well. Like, we need the input. If this is gonna work, and we need to learn from our failures in the past and other things that we've done in this community, whether it's the high school or other projects that we've done here, the Academy Street project that just can't get off the ground. We need to get support, and this is our gem, and that's why we need to do that. We have, I have not received anything directly, but I get a beach pass every year. Has everybody that bought a beach pass, have they gotten an email with the survey to take? Get the survey out to everybody. Use every resource we have in this town in terms of who registers for voting, who registers for the beach and refuge, especially when you think about beach passes, who's using the kayak racks and everything else, the voting things, the people that use it, and do it now while our summer people are here. Now's the time to do it. See what that looks like. And I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a ton different, but then you can be in a stronger place with that. So that's just one of the points, and I want you to finish your presentation, because you are doing a great job. But I don't think we can get away with what we're doing.
So Ted, we sent this invitation to 7,000 units. And there's what, 50 people?
We can't use that as an excuse, Austin. I've worked in government, I've worked in school systems. That's not the right answer. And trust me, you know I've got your back and I support you 100%. That cannot be the answer from our government officials. Well, this is what we got. I didn't get that email. I didn't get that email.
So if I could interject a minute.
I didn't.
Just to answer percentages and all of that. And what I should have maybe started with at the beginning. So I've been doing this now in Connecticut for 26 years, right? The feedback and the participation that I've seen in the last year from Madison residents far exceeds anything I've seen across every municipality we work in the state, right? So when we get 100 people that came to that first event, we normally in most municipalities when we work, we get 30 and we're happy, right? When there was 100 that showed up and we had 60 responses, we're assuming some of those were couples that came and filled out one instead of two, right? That's a phenomenal response rate from what we're normally used to seeing. I 100% agree with you that it's a fraction of your total population. It's a fraction of the registered voters and all of that. Just like when you have an election in November, it's going to be a fraction of the voters that actually show up to vote. So the participation to me, from my perspective, has been phenomenal from Madison residents. And the fact that you got this many tonight is a good show. What I would like to do, what I expect this to be, is most of the time, we don't get a lot of feedback until we have a plan for people to react to, right? This becomes something that people can now throw darts at, say they hate things, say they like things, and we have something to get that feedback started. So I fully support that we can do better. We'll continue to strive to do better to get this out there. And now that there's a plan, we hope to get that feedback started. And if there's anything in those assumptions, if I went through that whole list tonight, if you feel there's something in there that you don't like or don't agree with, we want to know about it.
No, you're hitting all of my points. That's not my point there. I just think those response rate, and I hear what you're saying too.
Yeah.
I just don't think as a community, we should settle for that. We've done that in the past. The people that have come out after the work, why do we have this, 9-acre parcel for a high school. And the high school plays across, across the way, the other thing, why aren't we down on the 42-acre parcel? That our community voted down because not everybody showed up. So I just think it's in our best interest when we talk about the crown jewel of this community. If we're gonna rest our hat on 1.5% of voters, 1.5% of households, I think we're just doing our disservice. I think our community is better than that. So I'm not discounting, that's not your job, though. I understand that.
Heard and understood.
I'm talking to our town leaders.
Okay.
All right, I have a question.
Can I just make a comment as one of the town leaders here? I 100% agree with you. And we've every year tried to improve how we have outreach to the community. We have the Madison alert system. We have about 3,000 people registered. We've been using the Beach and Rec email distribution site. So it is going out to the beach people who buy beach passes. It goes out to the seniors. But I know we all have overload with email, right? So we're trying to find other ways to also reach out to people and get more involvement. We're gonna have things all summer down at the Surf Club to talk about this with plans available.
We're gonna be there first.
Yeah, and we're gonna do QR codes and all this stuff. So there's gonna be further outreach. I 100% agree. We want to make sure that everybody's engaged and everybody's voice is heard. But it is hard. And if you've worked in government, you'll understand that most people are living their lives and they don't think about any of this stuff until the last minute when they have to go in and maybe pull a lever and vote on something. So we want to get ahead of that as much as possible. So if you guys have ideas, please send them. And we have an email address. We want to hear the ideas because I would love more participation. Nothing's more frustrating than for us to spend time and a lot of money and a lot of staff resources to put together a plan that then people at the last minute show up and just dump all, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that everybody's going to be engaged and it's not going to make everybody happy. This is going to be controversial no matter what. But I think our goal is to at least have everybody informed, understand the decisions that are happening, understand the timeline. So that's what we will, I pledged you, we're going to do as much as we can to get this out there. So, and your ideas, I would love your ideas. We have an email address you can send about how we can reach more people because, a lot of people have not signed up we have 3,000 people, I think, subscribed, and that's really every 2 weeks. This has gone out in the community alerts. But we'll find out more ways, so I encourage the feedback.
Can we get the community board together now rather than wait?
We have, I've been trying to get a community board put downtown.
No, not a board, like a committee, community committee.
Oh, it's for this.
Yeah.
I mean, the Beach and Recreation Commission is that community board. It's a group of volunteers. So
Yeah,
they're kind of overseeing the process, but point taken, should there be another phase of this where we have another a planning committee on this? Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
yes. Sooner the
Yeah.
better.
But I'm just saying that the Beach and Rec Commission is a volunteer board, the Capital Improvement Committee, there's a lot of committees, and then the Board of Selectmen is involved in this, but if there's a way that we could have like a community review board or something on the plan also to give feedback, that's something we could consider, absolutely.
So what I'd like to do is that there's gonna be a lot of questions, and I'm happy to stay as late as anybody wants to stay. But what I'd like to do is try to get through the plan so that people that might not want to stay as late as I might want to stay can see what they want to see and be able to go home and make comments. And then I can stay and take all the questions that you want to have and all the feedback, but I want to be able to get through this so that those people feel like, okay, we've seen the rest of the plan and are able to leave. So let me finish. And then we'll.
Are you keeping the existing bathrooms?
No.
Why not?
All right. So what we have is that's the location of the new buildings. This is the pavilion, bocce courts, the picnic area, the renovated parking lot. As we go up, again, Strong Field is an amazing asset, right? Absolutely phenomenal. The entrance is amazing, but it feels like when you're going there, you have to like go to the maintenance facility and you're not sure where to park. You park over here, the walk to get there is not great. So we've aligned the pedestrian walks that as everybody parks here, if they're going to the field, they have a nice big walkway to get you safely to the field. You have the drop off where it should be in front of the field. Be able to have buses pull in, pick up kids, drop off kids, parents, officials. Likewise, the trails that I mentioned, that we rehabbed those through, there's an area right through here that would make a great little educational amphitheater that looks down towards the wetlands from the high area right here, happens to be on axis with the front of the field. We have more continued walkways that go through. We do have a little bit of parking we can gain along here that would probably be good for officials and coaches and things like that during games day. We added a sidewalk all the way along, and I should note this is now a 24-foot wide road, as opposed to anybody that's driven back to right now, it's about a 12-foot, feels like a driveway. Can't pass back and forth, so this becomes a real road with real parking, a real sidewalk, street lights and things like that, so it's safe to go back and forth. We know that sometimes there might be people parked one side or the other for an event, and you have to go back and forth, walking wise to the back. Continuing up, there is, oops, went too far, going back. Well, since I'm here. So this road now continues, that's that easement area, there's a power line that runs along there, so we can bring the road up, we can loop the corner, and we can make our way up to the parking lot, up to Route 1 to be able to get out. We envision this road as really just an overflow exit for major events, right? It's not open, it's not an entranceway, it's blocked off. And one of these things we can talk about, is it blocked off here all the time? Or is it blocked off down here, depending on how we want people to access these fields? But it's not the way into the surf club for the majority of the time. We have a new shade structure bathroom up at the parking area. We're showing playscapes, small playscapes intermixed within the field areas so that siblings have a place or something, an activity to be able to do while the other sibling is on a field. We've improved the parking. If you've been back to this area, so this is the lower parking area. There's a very nice mature tree that we're leaving. We're making this basically now just a drop off at the lower level, as opposed to a handful of parking spots that are there. There's the boardwalk that comes through the wetland. We have a nice gravel area, ties in with the sidewalks, the drop off, new bathroom facility, and then walks that connect over to a small youth field. We now have a larger field there, actual safe, accessible routes from the parking area up above down to the field elevation, either ADA routes or steps, some viewing areas from up on high. We looked at a couple of different configurations for that parking area. This is kind of the way the contours run. So that's the simplest way, which we believe to be the most cost-effective way to build that parking. And I'll note that with this road, the way it turns the corner up there, the fields get shifted around a little bit. And so that's why the ball fields move down here, and I'll say the rectangles, the football fields, the soccer, they tend to move north-south. The alignments get better as far as solar orientation goes as well. So, that's the summary of where we're at right now. What I'm going to do is I've got, like I said, I've got some printed boards that I'm going to put over on the table so that if you've heard me enough, you're welcome to go over there and write your comments. I've got sticky notes that are both pink, /red, and green, with the intent being if there's something that you like, write it down on the green sticky note. Green is good. Pink, red is bad, right? So if there's something you don't like or something you want added, we're going to read them all. So if you get your colors mixed up, that's fine. But that's kind of the idea. We like to be able to have a very quick generic takeaway, as there's a whole lot of good comments, bad comments. How's the public feeling about these? But you can stick those all over the plans and be able to kind of give us some more direct feedback, and to be able to look at the plans and see a little bit more detail than what you might be able to see up here. So
You're not gonna show us the next plan up here?
the next plan up here,
Yeah, the next plan, you've got 3 plans.
we had 3 plans.
I wanna see all 3 of them.
So what we reviewed those 3. This is the one that they've been coalesced down to. This is the
So
plan.
this one sucks.
Okay, well, then you can write that on a sticky note and put it on the one.
Question.
Real quick question.
Call on me, but then I got,
Oh, sorry.
but according to the current regulations, how much of an elevation does the new building have to be?
The new building needs to go up by about 4 feet.
It has to be more than it is now?
Correct.
Additional?
More than it is now. Right now, it's about elevation 9, 10. It needs to go to probably 14.
Okay. Because, and then we're gonna have 2 stories, so it'll visually be there. It can be elevated and then.
It will be elevated and it will be a new building. Right now, it's probably 1.5 stories with a roof, and there is a second floor that's not open to the public, that's up there, that's storage.
Oh, there is, okay.
But, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the plan would be to bring grade up to the building,
Okay,
right? So it doesn't feel like it's up on stilts.
thank you.
Same note, what's the setback from the water line compared to where it is now, of the new building?
I would have to measure, to tell you the real number, but I would guess that we're pushed back somewhere in that 50 to 75 feet further from the water. I can give you a better answer, but that's my gut feeling. Hold on one second. Boston, do you want to take these plans and go set them over there? Oh, or there's paper ones that we can just put out. There's older ones that are mounted that.
Does this have to be approved by a council commission?
Absolutely. Does this have to be approved? This needs a lot of approval. First and foremost, it needs the public approval.
Right.
Then when we go to actual like permitting, this is Army Corps, this is DEP. Yeah, this is definitely coastal.
Next, just a question.
Yep. Yep.
I love the idea of letting the English line.
Speak up.
Can you say that loud?
repeat it.
I love the idea of a living coastline. Those students will be homeless are going to be low, so take over them. Human nature has proven people take the shortest distance where they are to get to the beach. They're not going to be able to, they're going to be trampling over those dunes, and look at Camanasset, they have to be really high in order to be effective. So if people are going to be trampling on that very fragile new grass, they will not retain the dune, and it will not become that whole effective as seawall. That is an engineering consideration that has to be seriously looked at. Or you look at any aesthetics, look at human nature.
Yep, I would agree. So what I would add to that is there's a chance that as we get into real design, real details, there could still be a wall or hardened structure that's built within that dune. That's one of those living shoreline details. If you build a dune over it, and then you have a fortification inside of it in case.
What's the sign on?
Yeah, yeah,
State concept.
hold on, going back here.
I have a couple quick questions, very quick. One, do you have an overlay slide of what the current footprint looks like? That's one. Two, up at the top, we have exchange field. I don't see the current Little League softball field that's there. Is that going to be discontinued? And also, there's also a whole back box colony where the lower part of like football soccer area is. Is there a place for me to look at that?
So the field that's up here,
Right.
the little league field,
Yes.
comes down here.
Oh, so there's pretty low.
That's what we don't lose the field at all. And then you're the other one that.
There are also back boxes down there.
That house.
So
that
are those gonna be below?
100%. They go with it there.
So are aware of them?
Yes.
Okay, and my question is, do you have like an overlay slide that shows kind of where the footprint is for all of these things? Like those kind of like black lines of over this, that you can see what's shifting and how much.
I easily can.
Okay, good.
I don't have one, but I easily can.
That'd be great.
And doing the citizens are not fair. Can you give us a cost analysis, all these plans? All these concepts. We need to know, people need to know what this is gonna cost us.
Yes, we
Plain and simple.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. My short answer, yes.
That's how government works.
That is the
You say
next.
30 million, but it costs 70 million at the end.
Well, the next step, once we get consensus in the public, will be a process.
We've been through that many times.
So I'm sorry, I don't be dead by 2050, but
That's
it
what-
still sounds like short-term planning. What's sea level rise for the year 2300?
For 2,300, I don't.
25 years.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I get the.
Well.
Boston is, Massachusetts is working with different dialogues. And Connecticut is as far as sea level.
So what we were all looking towards is 20. They're saying it's because it's 2050, because we know it gets there, it's just a matter of when it's.
Right.
And then we can see it extrapolate past that, but at the time they did the plan, they didn't have the confidence to say, so. Oh, we can keep looking, I can keep looking.
It sounds like short-term planning to me. If one of the issues is sea level rise.
Well, and that's where we normally go year plus,
And then.
right? So we can look at what those numbers are.
So we can.
And what I'm saying, like the building itself is gonna be well above the 20 years. It's everything else.
Okay.
Check out M&S, they're working on a big beach addition plan. They're.
Oh, no, that's,
Check it out.
I will definitely look at it.
no, that's all.
No. President DR.
And
Very, very.
that is a perfect addition.
Yes.
Storage.